yeah, why relocalize? Relocalizing isn't just, we don't mean relocalizing in the usual sense of economic revitalization. That's normally when we think about, renewing communities, what we end up doing is subjecting them even more to the dynamics and problems of globalization. We talk about being competitive, and that usually means reducing wages and reducing benefits so we can compete against suppliers in China or in other parts of the world where people are willing to work for less, where there are less regulations and things like that. That's not what we're talking about with relocalization. We're talking about a couple of things. We're talking about trying to keep money in the community, because money spent here has a tendency, if we go to someplace like one of the big box stores, the money vanishes. It goes to bank accounts somewhere else and never gets respent here. Whereas if we spend it here, locally, within the region, then the people who are paid that money then turn around and spend it on other businesses in the area. And we can circulate money and revitalize in that sense. But there's another sense in which what we're interested in doing is different than the standard kind of economic revitalization. We're interested in getting people to connect with the sources of their goods. When we buy clothing that's made in Vietnam, we have no idea what the conditions under which that clothing is made are. We have no idea if it's made in sweatshops. We can, ask people to go certify it in one way or another, but we just really don't know. We're disconnected from the stuff that we buy in that way. We don't realize how much suffering may go into the production of the things that we depend on. And we have no real way of telling who the people are that produce consumer products. They're just faceless people working in a factory somewhere. And that's dehumanizing in a lot of different ways. It turns the economy into something that we have no control over. And frankly, it just feels bad to know that the stuff that I need, that I use, that I care about, is produced under conditions that I would find appalling. So globalization, in a way, and economic growth that goes with it have turned out to be a kind of bad deal. So one of the reasons that we're interested in pushing the local economy through a whole bunch of different programs is that we're trying to, in a sense, encourage people to pay attention to where they live, to slow down a little bit, to be a little bit less concerned with bigger and better and more all the time, and a little bit more concerned with the quality of their goods, with the people behind them. There's a lot of the economic problems that we're facing now. The politicians out there, leaders all over the place, business leaders and politicians, all claim that the solution to our economic problems is to somehow restart the engines of capitalism, get back to growth. And we're a little bit skeptical about that here for a number of different reasons. First off, growth hasn't seemed to really solve the problems that we've claimed it's solved. In the last 30 years, we've seen enormous amounts of economic growth, and what that's meant is the depletion of fossil fuels. It's meant pumping enormous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is causing massive amounts of climate problems. It's caused pollution everywhere you look. There's nowhere on Earth now that hasn't suffered the impacts of pollution from human industrial wastes. And it's led to inequality as well. The whole Occupy Wall Street movement lately has focused pretty heavily on how our modern economy has just exacerbated the problem of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And I don't think those are an accident. I don't think those are just a result of a few greedy people being in positions of power determining how the global economy works. It seems like it's built into the whole idea of growing forever. We reward people who cut corners environmentally. We reward people who amass more and more money and power and give less and less to the people who are working for them. As environmentalists have been pointing out since the 1970s, to grow forever. In fact, it is impossible. If you think about the world of nature, there's nothing in nature that grows forever. Well, there's a couple of things that try to grow forever, like cancer. Cancer is something that it's when cells just keep growing incessantly and they end up killing the host. in a sense, we're doing that to the planet at this point, where there's a limited amount of stuff to burn, a limited amount of solar energy, a limited amount of resources, and we're going to have to deal with this sooner or later. One way of trying to deal with it is by not turning our back on globalization, but by re-emphasizing the local, by trying to slow down, by connecting people with their neighbors, by turning our economic interactions into a part of a larger whole, of a community.